Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending and welcome to day 3 of Genocide Awareness Week, the 10th anniversary and the first year at Arizona State University. And it's my pleasure today to introduce Dr. Lawrence Bell, Larry Bell, with whom I've worked for many years and had the pleasure of attending events at the Arizona Jewish Historical Society, from exhibits in the museum to presentations to also memorial events and such. Larry was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. Dr. Bell received his bachelor's degree in history from Arizona State University and his master's and PhD degrees in history from The Ohio State University. For the past 16 years, Dr. Bell has served as the executive director of the Arizona Jewish Historical Society, where he has been involved in restoring Phoenix's first synagogue as the Cutler-Plotkin Jewish Heritage Center, a museum and cultural center open to people of all faiths. The center now hosts a variety of programs, including regular exhibitions of Jewish history and art, a monthly documentary film series, book discussion groups, Holocaust speaker seminars, genealogy society, and a community archive. The society's newest project involves the creation of a 17,000 square foot Holocaust Education Center on its current campus in downtown Phoenix, which is adjacent to the Burton Bar Library off Central. In addition to his professional work, Dr. Bell serves on the board of the Arizona Interfaith Movement, as well as the Phoenix Police Department's Jewish Advisory Board, and also the Genocide Awareness Week Board as well. So thank you very much, Larry. We look forward to hearing what you say. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for that great introduction, John. And, it's a pleasure to be included in this year's conference. I appreciate you guys allowing me to Zoom in, as I wasn't able to be there in person due to a bunch of events today, but I'm glad to be with you virtually, and hopefully the Zoom and everything will work out good. So a little bit about what we do. I'm the director of the Arizona Jewish Historical Society, and we are an organization that runs a small museum in downtown Phoenix. We're located right next to Burton Bar Library, if you know where that is, close to the ASU downtown campus. And we run a variety of programs. So we already are up and running. We've been in existence since 1981, and we've been in our present building since 2010. And so we run a variety of programs. And if any of the people at the conference here today are interested, you should check us out, because we run a whole long list of programs that specifically related to the Holocaust. We have a monthly Holocaust survivor speaker series where we have one of our local survivors speak over Zoom once a month, and a wonderful interviewer named Tony Fusco who does the interviews with them. And we also, in addition to that, have another series in which we interview survivors of other atrocities and acts of persecution, which we call Surviving Humanity. And these ranged in a variety of topics, including, two of our upcoming ones will be Rana Singh Sodhi, who was the brother of the Sikh man who was murdered the day after 9/11 in Mesa, Arizona. And then we're going to have next a defector from North Korea come and talk to us about what's going on in North Korea. So we have a lot of interesting programs that I think your participants would be interested in. How do you find those? You go to AZ, like Arizona, azjhs.org. So azjhs.org. But that's not what I'm here to talk to you today about. Today, I was asked to speak a little bit about our project to create a permanent Holocaust Education Center here in Phoenix. And let me see if I can share screen. And if we get this to work, that will be great. First, what I'll do is show you a short film about the project, and then I'll go ahead and discuss. So let me see here. And we want to move this there. All right. I'm assuming I can, yeah, I see your screen there. So let's see if this works. This is a little introductory film, about 6 minutes or so, about the project, and then I will go ahead and speak further on.
Jewish people have used these words to mean that each of us has a responsibility to make the world a better place. But how do we do that when there's so much that's broken in our world? My history teacher says the only way to fully understand the present is to study the past. That's why my teacher brings speakers to our class, people who've lived through a past we never want to repeat.
When I stepped into freedom many, many years ago, I kicked the word hate out of my vocabulary.
Oscar Nobla is 95 and he survived the Holocaust. Oscar says the problem with hate is that it doesn't stay just hate for long. He watched it transform into fear, then discrimination, and finally genocide. A genocide that killed 11 million people, including his own father. 50 years after the Holocaust, 9-year-old Emmanuel Habimana survived the Rwandan genocide. Emmanuel's parents and 6 siblings were killed simply because they were from the Tutsi tribe. In the end, Hutu tribe members killed nearly 1 million Tutsis, and Emmanuel was orphaned.
I did not tell my story to make the world feel sorry for me. I was worried that somewhere another kid is going to be orphaned somewhere. So I said, how are we going to make the never again a reality?
Artist Robert Sutts came to our class too. He makes life masks of survivors like Oscar and Emmanuel so we can see their faces up close and hear their incredible stories. His paintings help us see what they saw.
I felt I wanted to do something so future generations would remember that this event happened.
What happened in World War II and the Holocaust is not something in the distant past. It has very, very immediate relevance to us today. And this is no more apparent than when you look around and see the kind of hateful rhetoric and the kind of xenophobia and the kind of hateful actions that are taking place now.
You know, a student may not remember the lesson and the objective that was up on the board, but they will remember the moment the emotional connection was made to where they felt the story.
I'll never forget what Oscar said. Each of us has the responsibility to be an upstander to hate.
Don't ever be a bystander. Be the opposite. Become an upstander. A person who stands up and does the right thing.
These survivors share their stories so we can learn from them. But what happens when they're gone?
We disappear. One of us dies and our voices are silenced. We must remember, not for just generation only, but for all the generations to come. Because as long as you can remember, you will see to it that it will never repeat itself.
The Phoenix Holocaust Education Center will be a place for students like me to experience history up close. Technology will transport us to the past and help us connect events of the Holocaust to the intolerance and injustice we see today.
And the world to live is extremely strong.
We'll meet Arizona Holocaust survivors and learn about their lives. We'll also hear about upstanders. Their stories will inspire young people like me not to be a bystander to hate. We'll add our voices to a conversation about how to turn hate to hope. Phoenix is the 5th largest city in the United States. It is the only city of its size that doesn't have a Holocaust Education Museum.
This is going to be a landmark in our city. Thousands and thousands of students are going to visit as part of their education. And of course, it's going to inspire people as almost nothing else can. So, for so many reasons, I really want to strongly encourage people to take part in this.
The Phoenix Holocaust Education Center will be a place where tikkun olam, repairing the world, can truly happen.
Together, we can make a difference.
Together, we can repair the world.
We can find hope in the lessons of the past. We can be upstanders together. Together, we can make the world a better place.
Together, we can build the Phoenix Holocaust Education Center.
Please join us in building a legacy of hope.
All right, hopefully you guys were able to see that and can hear me okay. Yes, I'm going to talk today about our capital campaign to create a Holocaust Education Center here in Phoenix, in the Valley. And want to stress that it's not just a museum, but truly an education center where there's going to be a variety of activities taking place. Let's see if you guys, I see your screen is a little bit behind mine. So a little bit about us and what we're doing. The Arizona Jewish Historical Society was founded in 1981 and preserves the rich heritage of Arizona's Jewish communities, educates the public about Jewish history, and promotes interfaith and multicultural dialogue. So our organization has a track record of doing this kind of activity. We currently run exhibits all the time on a variety of topics, including the Holocaust. And as anti-Semitism and hate and political divisiveness seem to expand in our society, we feel that this is the right time for us to expand and to take action to try and create a place where people can come and counteract some of this rising hatred. As the video said, Phoenix is the largest US city that does not have a Holocaust museum by far. And furthermore, in October 2020, the Arizona State Board of Education voted to make Holocaust education a requirement for middle and high school students. They're required to teach Holocaust and other genocides at least twice between 7th and 12th grade. So there's a lot of students now, younger than college age, that are seeking out, a lot of teachers and students that are seeking out this kind of education. And especially, you know, if you saw our video, you saw Gerda Klein there, if some of you may have known her speaking in the video, and especially, and she just passed away, unfortunately, but especially as our survivors pass away, we need a place where people can go to receive this education. You know, for many, many years, it was the survivors who were carrying on this task of telling their stories. But really, it's now up to us to continue this task. And not just in an academic context, but to reach the general public as well. So here's our project. Some of you may have been to the Arizona Jewish Historical Society already. You'll see our building in the front. This is our building as it is. I think you can probably see my mouse moving around. And then we're going to be adding a 17,000 square foot building behind the existing historic building. It will be a state-of-the-art center, including a hologram of local survivor Oscar Knobloch, which is actually already in production and should be ready in the fall of 2022. It will include artwork from the Robert Sutts We Remember art collection. I know that this artwork is often featured with Genocide Awareness Week, and we've come up with some interesting and creative ways to use it. It'll also have a special exhibits gallery where we can bring exhibits on a variety of topics, not just the Holocaust, but other incidents of persecution, of genocide, of other atrocities that have taken place. And also other positive things, maybe exhibits about people who are upstanders and who have taken action to try and stand up against these atrocities. It'll include classrooms and also event space. To build the museum, we've hired an award-winning design team. I don't know if people are aware of who Gallagher and Associates is, but they are the leading museum design firm in the country and possibly one of the leading firms in the entire world. You could see a list on screen of the various museums that they have designed and built, including our very own musical instrument museum here in the Valley, the Museum of the Jewish People in Tel Aviv, the Illinois Holocaust Museum, the World War II, National World War II Museum, and many others. So we have really invested to try and get the most creative and innovative design firm to create something that's new and different for our community. The architect for our project is a gentleman named Robert Graham, who has experience with historic preservation. Because our building has to interface with the existing historic building on our campus, Bob was the one who designed or who did the architectural renovation on our historic building, which we have now, which, by the way, in October of this last year turned 100 years old. And so he will be the architect to make sure that the buildings interface together properly. This gives you a sense of what the new center will look like. If you've been to the Arizona Jewish Historical Society, you recognize again the small gallery in the front of the photo, and you'll actually have a new lobby area where you enter, and then the building behind will be the new center. It'll have 3 levels, by the way. There'll be a ground floor level, an upper level, which will contain the offices and administrative functions, and then a basement level for collection storage, archives, and also exhibit preparations. Just here's a floor plan of what we're planning to do. I don't know if you can see my cursor. I can't tell from what I can see if you can see me moving around, so I'll try and describe a little bit. At the bottom of the image, you'll see the existing synagogue called Main Hall, and you'll see the existing gallery, which has a number of rooms that say gallery, 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 and so forth. Those buildings will remain the same. However, the existing gallery to the left of the bottom left of the image, this will be converted into an area where we'll talk about the Jewish historical experience. You know, it's very important that as a member of the Jewish community and as a community leader of an organization, it's very important, I think, that when we discuss the Holocaust, we need to make sure that we do not present Jews or others who have suffered atrocities as simply as victims. We want to also make sure that people understand the culture of the people who were the victims. And sometimes I feel that these things get overlooked, often in discussions, and certainly often in museums. They focus often on the atrocity, but not on the culture or the people who were the subjects of the atrocity. And I think it's important to remember that Jewish history and Jewish culture is a living thing. And though we're going to be studying and exhibiting and talking about the experience of the Holocaust, where Jews are killed largely, some survive, but we want to make sure that we also address what the larger culture is that is Jewish culture. If you look at the top of the diagram, you'll see to the top right where it says permanent exhibit area. That is all going to be, that entire area is about 4,100 square feet. And that will be entirely dedicated to the subject of the Holocaust. And I'll go into in a moment how that area functions. But to the left of it, you'll see there's an exhibit sort of in the top center that says changing exhibits. And in that space is where we have room dedicated to host other things. So we understand that you cannot teach the Holocaust in isolation from other events and also from present times. And so we want to make sure that we're building a space that is large, it's flexible, it can be combined with the classrooms as well if necessary. It's all very flexible space that could give us up to between 1,000 and 2,000 square feet to host exhibits on other topics so that we can make sure that what we're doing is also relevant to other experiences. And so we built in some flexibility for that. We do not have the ability, square footage wise, to have permanent exhibits on other genocides. We wish we could, but we cannot. But that's what this changing exhibit space will do. It'll allow us to host on a rotating basis exhibits on other topics. Just a little bit of the upper level, which will contain offices and administration. You know, these functions are necessary for a museum or an education center to operate. And then a basement level where we're going to maintain collections, archives, conservation, and space to prepare exhibits and so forth as they're being developed. Here's some renderings of what the new center will look like, an overhead view. It's amazing what the architects can do these days with computer-generated images. This would be an image of one of the classrooms. So there's 2 classroom areas that are built into the facility. And in addition, you have the main hall of the original sanctuary, which is also seats about 250 people in order to facilitate events taking place at the center. This would be an image of the lobby when you first walk in. And there's an outdoor terrace. You know, one of the functions of museums and education centers, and one of the ways that they raise money in order to operate, is that you host events at the place. And so this terrace will largely be used for events and other functions that take place there. Both events related to mission, like Holocaust education type events, but also rental events for a variety of purposes. And that gives you a sense of how it will look from the terrace. It's a beautiful neighborhood if you haven't been there. It's in downtown Phoenix. It was for many years a declining neighborhood, but the last several years has really come back up to be a very nice area. And it's located right in the middle of Phoenix. All right, a little bit about what we're going to do inside this place. So the mission of the new center in particular will be dedicated to exploring the lessons of the Holocaust and other crimes against humanity. The center will educate and inspire visitors of diverse backgrounds through local survivor stories, artifacts, immersive media experiences, community outreach, and public programs. We will seek to inspire visitors to learn from the Holocaust, to become upstanders, and to work towards a world without hatred or bigotry. So if you remember earlier in the presentation, I pointed out the 4,000 square foot space that's permanently dedicated to Holocaust education. Now, it's permanently dedicated to the purpose, but it doesn't mean that the things on display will be permanent. There will be rotating displays throughout this exhibit, because a lot of it is going to be done technologically. So our goal is to really make use of the newest technology in trying to create a place that's going to be innovative, interesting, and to really, our goal above all else is to create an emotional connection to the events. The philosophy that we have in mind in building this is that we feel that in the old days, maybe you needed a museum to go to because you didn't have access to the information. The information was largely in books and articles and things that you might have to visit a library or some other place to access in order to actually learn what happened. Today, that's different. The information is at everybody's fingertips. All you have to do is flick your thumb on your cell phone, and if you're really interested in the Holocaust or the Cambodian genocide with Pol Pot or Rwanda or any of these topics, you can Google search them and find them right on your phone. You can be laying in bed and flick the phone and find everything you want to know right on your cell phone. So we feel that we don't necessarily need to include every detail in terms of the factual information of what took place. Our goal instead is to create an emotional connection with the visitor so that the visitor will maybe will remember their experience, because you remember emotional learning a lot better than you remember memorization of facts and details. And we see this over and over again with Holocaust survivors, that when they speak to students in classes, the students will say over and over again, you know, I learned about the Holocaust in my textbook, I learned about it in class, but I never cared a whole lot about it. I never felt that it had anything to do with me. It was a distant event long ago. But when I met you, the Holocaust survivor, and you came to speak, all of a sudden what happened long ago became very personal to me. And it was something that I was very, you know, that you made an impact on my life and changed how I'm going to behave. And so that's the goal in this center, is to create an emotional connection, which will be memorable. okay? Not necessarily to teach every detail of what happened. The area will have four different, this part of the gallery will have four different areas. Area 1 will be an introduction to the Holocaust, but it will start in the present. And so we're going to show people images from the present on a variety of screens so that they can see the hatred in the present. And then we're going to show them how this kind of hatred, how this kind of propaganda, how this kind of divisiveness that we have now, how events like in the Ukraine and Syria and other parts of the world, how this has roots and relevance in the past as well. In area 2, which you see is the largest of the areas and has different subsets, that's where you'll learn the kind of facticity of the Holocaust. You'll learn the data. You'll learn the experiences of what happened, how many people were killed, the names of the killing centers, and so forth. You'll learn a bit about the Holocaust by bullets, which is also part of the Genocide Awareness Week this week. And then in area 3, you'll meet Holocaust survivors. And there'll be stations where you can listen and learn from them. And we're also going to have a hologram of Oscar Knobloch available that you'll be able to talk to and interface with. In area 3, it's important that when you build this center, there's a lot of Holocaust centers out there. Our focus is really to serve the local community first. And so we feel that the stories of local survivors are the ones that we wish to emphasize the most. Not that we wouldn't tell other stories, but we have so many people locally whose stories are not yet known widely that we prefer that we would want to tell their stories primarily, because it also helps intersect with the local community, that students can see that these are not people that are far away from them in Poland or the Ukraine or someplace like that, but rather these are people that lived right here in Phoenix, not during the Holocaust, but afterwards. And in area 4, when you come out, you'll have a call to action. All right, so let me show you some images of what these areas might look like. These are renderings, of course, and it's all contingent upon fundraising. But this is an idea of how area 1 will function. People will come in, you'll see the different images of things on screen from the present and the past, and trying to kind of almost superimpose these things so that you can see that, it's an old saying, the more things change, the more they also stay the same. And unfortunately, even though human society does improve and we develop all sorts of new technology to make life better, we still keep doing these things. We still keep also committing these kinds of atrocities. And unfortunately, we keep using new weapons to do it. So sometimes old weapons. But we want to let people know that events in the Holocaust and other past atrocities have relevance to today. Area 2, and this is not necessarily going to be panels on the wall. This is just sort of a rendering of the area, but we're going to use as much technology as possible. Area 2 is where you're going to learn kind of the nuts and bolts of the events. We do need some detailed information on what happened, on the sequence of events and how the Holocaust evolved over time and how it took place. And this is the function of the second area. In area 3, as you see, Gerda there, you'll see that in area 3, you're going to meet the survivors. It's very important that what we want to do during the visit is to create what's called an emotional arc. So during your visit to this center, you're going to start out, say, on a level plane, and we're going to take you down. We're going to bring you down and explore the darkest parts of our history, the darkest atrocities that human beings have committed in our experience. So we're going to take you down. We're going to bring you emotionally down. We're going to horrify you. We hope that you're horrified, that maybe you're fearful, that maybe you're angry, and so forth when you learn about what happened. And in area 3, we want to try and bring you a little bit back up. And so the arc comes down in area 2, and in area 3, we begin to bring you back up by learning about the survivors. And in addition to telling us as survivors what they saw and witnessed during the Holocaust, we also learn about their resilience, and we also learn how they survived. And so even though the survivors are largely the exception to the rule when it comes to studying the Holocaust, far more people were killed than survived. Nevertheless, the survivor experiences offer us some sense of light in what is otherwise a sea of darkness. And we want to make these personal experiences. We don't need to tell every survivor's experience, although we will rotate those experiences so that it won't always be the same people's stories being told. And finally, in area 4, we lift you back up and we say, okay, we've taken you, we've shown you the worst that humanity can do. We've shown you how this ties into present events. And you've met some of the survivors and learned from their experiences. Even though they may no longer be with us, you've learned from them. You've got to listen to them. And in the case of Oscar's hologram, you even got to talk and interview him. What are you going to do with it? And so that's the challenge of area 4, to transform hate to hope. What are we going to do about it in today's world? What can we do today to make things a little bit better? And that's the emotional arc. In the museum, we're going to incorporate state-of-the-art technology. And so the idea is that we have a limited amount of square footage. And so the goal is to make sure that we can do as much as possible with technology. And I think we can. We are living in a very different world, say, than even 10 years ago, and certainly than 20 years ago. And there's so many wonderful things that can be done technologically without requiring a lot of space. I'll give you one example. With virtual reality, you can go anywhere you want and you don't have to walk around. You can sit in a chair and put on a helmet, and we can take you anywhere we want to take you, and you don't need to be walking around looking at the walls. So we kind of have a different idea for a museum maybe than has been built in the past. So I want to make sure people understand this is not a Holocaust museum in the sense of what you might experience in Washington, D.C., but rather this is something different. We're trying to be very innovative in a small space. Another key element of our project is the Robert Sutts collection. And again, I know many people have seen his artwork through Genocide Awareness Week. And Mr. Sutts has developed a collection of life masks, hundreds of them, hundreds, if not thousands, of life masks of survivors, of righteous Gentiles, of military veterans who liberated concentration camps. He's also developed portraits of these people and also artwork showing their experiences. And one of the things that we would like to do with the artwork in particular, which is very graphic, but it's static, is to take it, and I don't know if anybody's been to, say, the new immersive Van Gogh exhibit that was in Scottsdale, but we want to do something like that with Robert Sutts's artwork, where we take the artwork and instead of just hanging paintings on the wall and having you look at them in a very kind of static way, we want to actually take the images and project them in a room to where they can move, where you can actually experience sounds, possibly even other things, vibration and feeling as well, to go along with the images to really try and transport you. And again, to use the artwork to create an emotional connection to what's going on. Because again, you remember things much better if they touch your emotions than if you just remember facts and details. We want this to be a memorable experience. And the Robert Sutts artwork collection contains a lot of potential to do that. The people in his artwork each have a story, have a narrative, and the art is mostly of survivors. And so through the artwork, we can tell the stories of the survivors represented in the art. So that's very much a part of what we're doing. It's a unique collection, I might add. It's a local collection that only exists here in Phoenix, and it's been donated to the Arizona Jewish Historical Society. Again, I mentioned that there'll also be an exhibit area for the topic of Jewish heritage, Jewish history, just a basic understanding of Jewish beliefs and customs, and also the Jewish experience here in Arizona, which should not be overlooked. Again, we need to remember that Jews are not just victims, but rather we're just people like everybody else. And we have our lives, we have our religion, we have our customs, we have our food and music, and we want people to get a sense of that as well, because if all we do is teach about death and the death of Jews, then we really haven't helped understand our Jewish community today. And the best way to fight anti-Semitism is simply to teach people about what Judaism and Jewish heritage is, because hatred is based on fear, and fear is often based on ignorance. And so the more people know about Judaism and what the holidays are and what Jews believe, the more we can combat misinformation about Judaism, about Zionism, about a variety of topics, the more we can fight against anti-Semitism. We'll have educational programs. We already have them. You can see photos now from the different programs that we run. We already now have a large number of students that, at least prior to COVID, would visit the center and now are engaging with us online. We have a number of things, a film series, we have speaker series, book discussions, we host musical events. And again, we're going to have a hologram of survivor Oscar Knobloch available for people to spend time with. The budget. So let me see if I can, there we go. The project is a $15 million project. It includes approximately $11 million to construct and to lay out all of the technology and the exhibits within the building itself. And then there will be a $4 million endowment to ensure that the center can operate in perpetuity without becoming a financial burden on the community. You cannot build a museum or an education center like this without an endowment. Museums do not make money on their own, and they need to be funded some way. And so unless you have an endowment fund that is going to be able to spin off revenue every year, you will not be able to.
Arizona State University Genocide.
Won't be able to fund the center in the future.
The day before yesterday, President Zelensky, Ukraine, visited.
I'm not sure what somebody is speaking on my thing here, but in any event, this is the budget. It's $15 million. And the projected opening for the center, we're currently raising money right now, would be 2024, if we can do that. And projected number of annual visitors would be about 12,000 students with about maybe 37,000 annual visitors. And this was based on Gallagher and Associates research. Where are we at in the project now? We have now raised $5.5 million in cash and pledges towards the $15 million goal. So we're a little over a third of the way there. Let me go back to here so you can see my face. Hopefully that all interfaced well. I didn't hear any complaints, so I'm assuming that the interface was done well. And I'm happy to field whatever questions you have. I don't know if you want to, I can't tell how you're doing them in the room. If anybody has a question, feel free to ask and they can communicate it to me.
Okay, thank you, Larry. We'll take questions in the room. Do we have a microphone?
Hi there, thanks for your presentation. I'm Andrew Wolford. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, where we have the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. And we've been working with them on a VR display to try to create a virtual reality residential school where Canadians can come and system. And some of the challenges we've had recently with trying to incorporate that into a museum context is, well, with COVID, the headsets were seen as potentially problematic. There's also some issues where people, sometimes it makes them motion sick or nauseous. So I'm just wondering, in terms of using VR, have you test driven it a bit? Have you seen some success in terms of how it's going to work and operate within the museum?
Yeah, I mean, so we are, we're still raising money to build this. So we have not necessarily created this apparatus yet. But I know other museums like the Skokie, Illinois Holocaust Museum use it, and I've heard very good reviews on it. And they seem to have excellent experiences using it. I know even they have all sorts of possibilities with it. So the answer is no, we haven't tested it at a specific level of how it will function on our site yet, because we're not that far along in the project yet. But I do know other centers have had good experience with it. And the idea is, like I say, to be as innovative as possible. and to try and adapt new methods. I don't think that people necessarily learn well anymore by looking at panels on the wall like they used to. I think younger people especially, in order to keep their attention, need to have a lot of technological capability going on.
More questions? Do we have some questions online?
We don't.
No?
So I would say a couple other things if there aren't more questions, and that is that we need help in a variety of ways. So we have developed a plan for how this will work, but again, we haven't yet launched the actual construction plans because we want to make sure that we're going to build what we design, and creating constructible plans is expensive. And we don't want to waste the community's funds creating a plan, a very detailed construction document that we won't actually build. So the plan is that when we reach $10 million in cash and pledges, we will launch the process of developing buildable plans and permitting the project and getting it ready to go, which we're almost there. So we need help in three areas. First, we need funds. We have about $5.5 million raised out of $15 million. If people know of funding sources that might be of help, we would very much welcome any funding assistance we can get. That's the thing we need the most. You cannot build it without the resources. You can't build any center without the resources. The second thing we need is people's expertise, especially those of you in academia who may be even professors or students. If you want to help get involved in this project and engage with us, we really wish to partner with as many people as we can. We need your expertise to make sure that we are covering the right topics, that we are using the right methods to educate students about these topics, and to help us also, figure out in terms of other topics that we wish to cover in the areas that are dedicated to rotating exhibits, what those might be. Sure, we have some sense, but as we see from this conference this week, there's a lot of things going on in the area of research about genocide that we may wish to incorporate. So this one is. And the final thing that we need is simply, tell people about the project. Help us get the word out in the community that we are trying to build this, that we do intend to build it, and that we have a very interesting, innovative project that's going to be located right in the middle of downtown Phoenix in a very convenient location. And hopefully will be a center that will be a place that people will go when they visit Phoenix, but most importantly will be a place where schools can send students to learn about the Holocaust, to learn about other acts of genocide in a time when the survivors are no longer with us. So azjhs.org, azjhs.org. That's where you can go to find more information, to see what we're all about, and to connect with us. So azjhs.org. Is there anything else you would like to know, or just let me know?
Online question and an online. So the question is, with this being such a modern museum, will there be space for actual Holocaust?
I didn't hear the question.
Can you hear me, Larry?
I can only hear barely. Let me turn up my sound a little bit.
Might use the mic here. 1 second.
I mean, when you talk about technology, imagine this. 3 years ago, who would have thought we'd all, maybe you guys at ASU did that, but the rest of us weren't zooming into conferences quite that often. I mean, it's incredible what technology is allowing us to do these days.
Can you hear me better now?
Going to increase. Now I can hear you, yes.
Okay, so we have a question. With this being such a modern museum, will there be a space for actual Holocaust items?
Yes, we do intend to include artifacts largely in the area 2 of the gallery, and also in area 3 where we meet the survivors, and we are collecting actual artifacts from survivors, and we are also seeking out artifacts. We do not yet want to collect them and accession them in until the building is underway, because the storage issues. We'd rather the artifacts stay where they are until we're ready to store them in the new building. But we are certainly actively seeking artifacts and have already collected quite a few.
so hard to do this stuff for people.
Would you be able to put like maybe a link to your email into the chat? So because there was one comment about wanting to get a hold of you to share some ideas, and maybe people want to correspond with you to share some ideas and learn more about this project.
You got it. I have just put in the website, azj.org.
Excellent, thank you.
And my email is lbell@azjhs.org. And please do send if anybody would like to get involved, or I see Robin has noted that it's a great place to volunteer, and we are a very friendly workplace. Everybody in our organization does this because we love what we're doing and we believe in it. It's an important thing to do, and we all get great satisfaction out of doing it. So that's why we're doing this.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, I think that's time. Thanks, Larry, for your presentation and sharing where we're at with this, and your contact information, and this exciting new project.
Well, thank you for having me today. I really appreciate you letting me talk about this, and again, thank you, and all the best for the rest of the conference. I really enjoyed Father Dubois' presentation the other night, and you guys are doing great work.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.